Hello, I'm the Compendium and welcome to my channel. Hopefully this will be short and to the point. I would love to promise that, but I have really bad ADD. I haven't bothered with makeup or contacts because I missed last week, and I'm sorry, I apologize for that. I promised you guys that every Wednesday I would post a video, and then my third week, I skipped a week. And I'm not quite sure about the future for this channel just yet. So I want to give you a little backstory about why I missed last week. I'm sure you're not unaware of events in the world and the protests, and in some ways it's an incredibly uplifting time to be alive in and to be a part of. But it's also exposing some nastiness that's so hard to take on board. For reference, I'm from Minnesota. I was born in Rochester, and I grew up in and around the Twin Cities. I graduated from high school in St. Paul, which is the Twin City of Minneapolis, for those of you who don't know. I lived a few years in my early 20s in Minneapolis, and was where we always went to. If you were going out, you went downtown Minneapolis, generally speaking. Or at least you went somewhere in Minneapolis. At least I did, and my friends. So I know the city well. I've always known, and there's always been whispering and quote unquote gossip that the Minneapolis PD is nasty and icky. I've had, I won't even say encounters because I've watched them dealing with other people. And it's always been incredibly disheartening to realize that that's our police force. But I guess this isn't uncommon. I know it's actually true of the St. Paul police, although St. Paul is not quite as big a city. I am now in Ohio, and my closest city is Columbus, and there's a whole bunch of nastiness in that city's police department too. I will say that it shames me to know that I lived in Minnesota for so long, but had no idea who Bob Kroll was, who is the police union president in Minneapolis. And he's a nasty, small, empty piece of work. But now I'm meandering again, so I'm trying to get back to my point. So, of course, last week when George Floyd was murdered by police officers on video in Minneapolis, a few weeks, not even 2 weeks ago, I don't think. I was riveted. I was going to be paying attention because Minneapolis, St. Paul is home for me. And the reason I didn't get out a video, well, it's kind of twofold. Part of it's because I needed some time to reflect, really look inside. I've always sort of prided myself on being open-minded, and I've always known that it's impossible just to not be racist. I've always known that to be not racist means to think proactively about your actions and how the things you do might be different if this wasn't your skin color. And part of the reason I was, however, forward-thinking as I was due in great part to the fact that my little sister, was adopted from Guatemala when I was 11 and she was 9. So I've always tried to be aware for her, but now I realize that I was not nearly aware enough. For most of high school, I lived in a neighborhood that, when we first moved there, was absolutely inner city urban, and over the time we lived there became extremely gentrified. I never realized that my family was part of that gentrification process purely based on this, but we were also a poster child family for the neighborhood because my mother was single. She had 2 daughters, one, me, about as white gets, and the other Guatemalan. So we were what the neighborhood wanted to believe it was, even though we, as a family, were nowhere near as aware of what was going on around us as we could have been, as we should have been. Also, last week, my niece, who, as you may be able to figure out, her mother is, of course, Guatemalan, and her father is Black, and she came down to stay with us for a while. In part to keep her away from what was going on in Minneapolis, less for her physical safety and more for her peace of mind, because she's been dealing with a lot of stuff for a long time. And only when she was here did I start to realize how much stuff and how long a time. We did not do a lot of talking specifically of what was going on at home because she's exhausted and has every right to be. She's 28 years old and has been a part of a family that is 2 distinct cultures her whole life, her side of which, for sure, although we talk to her and her sisters about fairness and justice and not seeing color, which seems so stupid right now, never acknowledged to her, because we didn't know we needed to, that we don't know what she's been through. We don't know what she goes through. There is no way for the people on our side of the family who love her the most to really be able to understand on a core level what she deals with day to day, because we have the luxury of going back to being white and suburban. And she can never take her skin off. So right now, I am trying to re-examine sort of where I am in my life, what else I need to teach my children, who are now 17 and 14. And it is hard to teach people who think they know everything. Let me tell you, I'm still trying to understand how I personally and my family personally can affect change right now. I'm trying to call out that insidious racism that so many people that I love are showing to me on a day-to-day basis now. Mostly I've been online throwing grass at people. Let's be honest. I've been screaming and yelling and telling people they're racists, and it's not probably too helpful. But I'm so frustrated and I'm so angry, and my sister is a grandmother of 2 very brown, very beautiful boys. And at some point, going to go from being adorable baby boys to the rest of the world. Let's face it, to the country they live in and the people who live in that country. They're going to go from being beautiful, cute boys to being a threat. And I'm trying to figure out how I can make that less of a burden for them. And so how I can make it so that they don't have to, of necessity, be trained how to deal with the police so as not to die on a traffic stop. It's just not fair. And I think the unfairness has been and is now really eating away at me. On the one hand, I am so proud to be a part of what's going on right now, today, and being able to walk with protesters who, where I am now, let's face it, are mostly white. But I'm still proud it's happening. I'm proud that there are many white people out there right now who are sort of awakening from their slumber. And I really want to keep the pedal to the metal because it's working. And I want to tell my niece how much I love her. I love you, Huckabug. And one last thing, if you yourself are encountering some of these feelings or thinking about similar issues, try to read the room before you ask for clarity from someone of color. I have a Black friend who I graduated high school with who is exhausted. She's angry and exhausted. And part of her frustration is with all her white friends who are trying to ask her how to be, or about her experiences, or what's it really like, or how do you manage? And she's sick of it. So we need to educate ourselves. There are tons of resources out there. And being a book channel, I'm going to try to put some of those in the comments. But like I said, this isn't a book video. It's just me trying to explain why I wasn't here last week and trying to unburden myself in a way that might maybe affect change. I don't know. It's hard. I hope everybody out there is doing their part and staying safe. Thank you. Bye.